Welcome to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Today's guest is Drew Donaldson. Drew is a fractional CMO. He's into AI automation, all the marketing things. Also a South Lebanon native. Drew, love the beard. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Always a pleasure to talk to a fellow. Is it Lebaner? Is that
I
Lebanon? I don't know what the term is for multiple people from Lebanon.
I don't know either, but I have seen some bumper stickers that call it Lepnin, Lepnun.
Yeah,
I'm not quite that native.
yeah.
So, you've been all over. Started life down the street from me, ironically, and then yeah, tell us a little bit about your marketing journey and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, so I went to film school out of high school, and I was really passionate about kind of sound and sound design. I wanted to work in recording studios, and so I did that for a while. But once I got out of school, I did some internships in studios and just realized that there was just really no money in it. I talked to, this senior sound mixer at the studio I was interning at, and I like asked him frankly, I was like, "How much do you make an hour?" And at the time, he was like, "Oh, I make 25 bucks an hour," and he like said that with his chest out, and I was like, "That's what Costco pays like entry level employees. Like, what am I building here? Like, why am I doing this?" And so after that, I realized I really needed a branch to swing to. And as I was going through school, I had done a lot of producing for video, and I had done some work for some small businesses producing commercials. And this is like at the dawn of businesses starting to produce video online.
Mhm.
And so I kind of pivoted and I took a job leading the video team at St. John's University. And while I was there, I really took the job, one, because I knew I could do it, but two, because being in a marketing team, I could pick up all the knowledge that it would take to become a marketer and kind of make that big pivot. And like part of that also came from like I had run a production company on my own for a while and just always struggled to get clients, even though we did really good work. So I was
Mhm.
like, well, it's got to be the marketing thing. Like this makes sense to pivot because worst case scenario, I learn what I'm doing wrong and then I can grow my production company. Best case scenario, I can pivot out of the production industry and into something else. And so I did that for a couple of years. Then I went to Omnicom in New York and worked as a producer there for a very short time during the Pharma Bowl. If anyone remembers the Super Bowl that was dominated by pharmaceutical ads, you can thank me for that. Well, not totally me. I didn't have much of a hand in it, but the company I worked for. And then after that, I did some consulting work for marketing in the publishing sector and got really strong with data and automations like that. I came in to fix their production, and then once that was fixed, I was like, well, what else can I fix? And their automations and data was like the prime target. So I got really into that. And then after that gig ended, kind of closer to the end of COVID, I was looking at different opportunities, and two guys that were starting an agency came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to run our new agency?" And we did that for about a year, and then I bought them out of the agency and been running this business ever since.
And what? So, man, that's quite a thing. So, the agency that you bought them out, what did you guys specialize or focus in on that agency?
So it was all small businesses, and it was originally started as marketing coaching. And so their concept was sell a course, do a little bit of coaching via email, and you're done with it. But I had done a bunch of market research in the year prior that showed that that is not what small businesses wanted. What they wanted was hands-on support and coaching. And so that was the initial pivot we did, was to dump the course and just do coaching. And then the agency really grew out of the fact that we built all this trust with clients. And so we would tell them like, all right, you need to, build a landing page, or you need to build a website, or you need to record a video. And no matter like as much instruction as we could give them, it always came down to, well, like, can you just like do that for me? Like, I'm not good at it. It's not looking good. I don't know how to do it. I don't know who to trust to hire. And so even though I had kind of started this coaching program with the intention to not run another agency, I ended up running an agency anyway. So that was a good year of life of kind of adapting that business to being more agency centric. And then once Once we parted ways and I took it over completely, I really pushed into the agency as the main offering.
And man, so let me ask you a question. I'm going to take a brief pause. One sec. We'll edit this. And we're back. So it's interesting to understand the market demands. They were like, hey, the coaching is fine and great, but like we need the fulfillment being done, or we need deliverables. So what are some of like um the other things in recent days in doing marketing that you've listened to the market and picked up some signs on how to evolve and change your offering?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that the value of marketing deliverables kind of across the board is going down very, very quickly. And by that, I mean, with things like ChatGPT and Dolly and Anthropic's Claude, the value of copywriting, even if you're a phenomenal copywriter, is just going down the tank because now everybody can be an expert copywriter as long as you have the right prompting and you're giving it a good structure to write in. I mean, the bots are incredibly good at writing copy, and that's only going to get better. On the web development side, that used to be a wellspring. Everybody needs a website, everybody needs one built. They all cost a lot of money. But now, on the Super Bowl, GoDaddy ran the ad for their new Arrow platform, which is a fully AI based type in, hey, I need a website for my dog walking business, and bang, it's done. It's up and running, and it generates all the copy for you. And so, as I look at the marketing landscape, a lot of the pieces where we were able to generate a lot of revenue based on our expertise are just simply vanishing. And so, because of that, we're looking at the headwinds and saying, well, this is a adapt or die moment where the only agencies that are really going to survive the depletion of these revenue streams are going to be the ones that lean into AI and not away from it. And so, I really think this is kind of a point, a fork in the road where you're going to have some agencies say, no, we're going to, shun AI and try to make it work and stick to just using real humans at real computers doing real work. And then you're going to have other people that say, no, we're going to lean into AI and make AI work better for us and make it more productive and sell the systems and the processes and the tools and the prompts and all that stuff that comes with it, because that's what our what clients actually want. And I think that very few people that pick the road of staying in the old lane and continuing to sell deliverables are going to be around in 10 years.
It,
I think
it's
it,
it's
um,
it's very similar to newspaper ads and traditional radio ads. There's still some demand for it, but like, is it anywhere close to what it was in the heyday? No.
yeah, and there's a lot of guys out there who are selling newspaper ads back in the 80s and 90s, and very few of them are still around. And if you go into a local radio station, there's a good chance there's not a single DJ working any of the channels. It's all automated. And so it's a perfect kind of example of like the world is changing and you can either change with it or you can die a slow death. And I mean, I think for the reality is that the marketing sector is going to go through several rounds of consolidation where the big players buy out the smaller players, not being the 1 and 2 man shops, but being, the 500-person shops buying out the 30-person shops. And once that's done, you're going to have some major agencies at the top of the food chain who have very high end clients that are more than happy to pay for the expertise and the full suite of services and not mess with AI. But then you have a huge middle ground of small and medium businesses that are going to demand that there's more efficiency in the pricing of what you're offering. And if you're not leaning into that, you're going to lose a lot of that work. So it's either, do you have the capabilities of being one of the top 1% agencies in the world that is going to be the beneficiary of all this consolidation, or are you going to try to strike a new path into unknown territory?
Man, that's such a hot take. I love it.
Not my
I
most popular take, but it's the
well,
reality.
as someone that's worked in those 30 to 50 people shops, right, that mid-market agency world, I've noticed a common theme, especially local. but it's probably indicative of my experience with other of those similar shops that, they might have specialized in your SEO, your PPC, your small business websites, your, very cursory, we'll get it done for you type social media, whatever, like the deliverables, right? Like we're doing stuff and not doing stuff beats doing stuff. And they've gotten better at it. But the deliverables are still millions of dollars per year because let's face it, most businesses need some sort of marketing help, and a lot of agencies exist. So, but those businesses are still founder led, privately held, started between 96, 97, and like 2003. So the dot-com bubble, right?
Yep.
And they were disruptors of the landscape back, let's say, almost 30 years ago. But now it seems like people that are in the agreement of you and I are looking at like it's going to be disrupted quite a bit again. Like these $100,000 websites that take 6 to 9 months to build for your decent sized mid clients probably will cost hell of a lot less than 100,000 and much faster than 6 to 9 months to build. Um, I think there's a lot of opportunity for smaller, more nimble shops, especially this trend of few but mighty organizations. Like Tally is one example. There's 5 people and they're like I think they're 8 figures.
Yeah.
So do you see that being the trend that you think the agency you're with is going to go forward?
So I think the trend I'm calling out is really the broad-based marketers, marketing agencies that are kind of serving a very wide market. They're working for a doctor one day and a veterinarian the next day, and the next day it's a lawyer and that kind of stuff. I think those are the companies that are mostly going to get absorbed by the larger generalist shops. I think specialist shops that are built on relationships. So, like, just to name drop a couple local brands that you'll probably know, right? We got Rosewood out here in Richland.
Hmm.
They serve the Plain community. Rosewood ain't going anywhere, right? They're a fixture. They control that media landscape. And there is no way you're going to walk into a Mennonite owned business and convince them to leave Rosewood. It doesn't matter what your pricing is or what fancy doohickey you have, because that whole business is built on the relationship they have with that. And the fact that their father used Rosewood and like, it's a generational kind of thing. So it's that, or like Donovan down in Lidditz, like they are great when it comes to food advertisement and they know that market really well. And that's all they play in. They don't play in other people's backyards. They play in the food industry and that's it. So I think for agencies like that have this hyper focus on their niche, that have built up these relationships, they're going to be more resilient to that overall consolidation, but they're not going to be completely excluded from it because at the end of the day, everybody has a price. And the at some point, someone might come knocking on Rosewood's door and say, "Hey, listen, we'll leave all your people alone. We won't touch your operations, but we want to absorb you into our conglomerate." And they might take the money. And I don't think there's a business owner in the world who wouldn't sell their business for some price. I think, there's a lot of business owners that say, "Oh, I would never sell." But if someone showed up with $1 billion check, they're going to sell. Like, so I think it's just a matter of time, but I think they're going to be overall more resilient to that kind of consolidation because they built a home for themselves in a very specific niche.
Man, for those of you that own marketing agencies out there that are listening, um, if you ever want to sell your agency, not to a conglomerate, just let me know. So, Drew, what are some other key milestones in your career that have given you these like epiphany bridges where you've just seen the patterns in the wall, like because you've done quite a bit in your career. So like what talk about your milestones and like the guideposts and like how that shaped it.
So I think there was a couple that really stand out. I mean, I think when early on in my career, when we were first consulting with small businesses and video, um, I was shocked at how easy it was to sell that and the interest in video, even at that early stage where there weren't a lot of businesses, even big brands weren't on Facebook and TikTok wasn't even a thing, but like Instagram, that kind of thing. And so that was, I think, the first writing on the wall that like, hey, I'm onto something here. I think I should be focusing more on like the working directly with businesses for advertising versus working in like major media. And then I think seeing multiple strikes, multiple rounds of layoffs with friends that went through and actually did follow through and worked in the film industry was another kind of point where I looked back and I was like, yeah, I picked the right path on that, you know, as I was passing by that point, definitely picked the right path because I didn't suffer from any of those things. I think the biggest milestone though was right after the birth of my daughter. It was funny, we were talking earlier and you were talking about how you launched your agency from the delivery room. I almost lost my agency in the delivery room. We had, right after my daughter was born, I had told all my clients, and this was back in the time when a lot of our business was really coaching related. This is after I bought my partners out, and it was just a couple months later we were having our daughter. And I was I had an email ready that I was going to send out as soon as she was born, saying, "Hey, I'm going to take some time off, focus on my new daughter because it was our first kid. I didn't know what it was going to be like, but I'll still be around. If you have questions, you can email me. We'll take care of you." And over the course of the next 5 days, I lost 40% of my clients. And yeah,
Whoa.
and these were clients that I thought were happy and doing well. And when I removed that myself from the equation and just said, "Hey, I just need some time for myself," they were just like, "Well, seems like you're distracted doing this stuff. It seems like, this would be a good time to like change things up and try some other things." And so that's like coming home, and I was planning on hiring a VA, but I hadn't been able to find one that I trusted. And I actually interviewed a VA from the hospital parking lot like a day after my daughter was born, and I ended up hiring her. And then I immediately lost all this business, and I was like, I can't even afford to pay her anymore. And so instead of starting her full time, I had to start part time. And then it was like a struggle. Like the rest of the summer, I just could not get anything done. And like my wife is really good of like taking care of her so I can focus on the business. So it wasn't like that distraction. It was like, I need a cash injection quick. What am I going to do? And I was actually interviewed on another podcast. And after we finished, we were just talking about books because I have a pretty extensive marketing library and he had a big library behind him. And so we just started talking about our favorite books. And he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this guy named Alex Hermosi?" I said, "No, I've never heard of him. What's he do?" And he's like, "Well, he's like this fitness guru, but he's not really a fitness guru. He's more like a business guru. And he wrote this book, and I think you should read it. Like, I think you'd like it." And so I went out and I got the book, and $100 million offers like completely changed my trajectory because I read that book, and all of a sudden I realized what I was doing in the agency world was like commoditizing all my services. I was letting people pick off the Chinese menu of options instead of packaging stuff together and selling it. And so from when I started doing that, I launched my first like offer based advertising campaign as opposed to like just the plain old service based or the coaching based. I launched an offer based campaign and immediately grew the agency in about 60 days, 200%. So like we went from like almost having to close down to having more clients than we could ever handle. And then that then triggered a hiring spree where I had to hire so many people to now serve all these new clients that it was just like it was like drinking like from a fire hose. And so we got really into crafting specific offers that would solve specific markets problems. And that really kind of reframed the agency as not just another place where you go to get posts on Facebook. Like we don't do that off the shelf stuff. Like everything we do for clients is very custom, very tailored, but it's tailored to them, but it's based off of templates we know work, like strategies that we know work. So it's not everybody running the exact same campaign. It's like, hey, we know A plus B equals C. So we're going to do that. But instead of A plus B, it's going to be, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? We're going to change some of the variables, but we know the outcome is going to be the same because the formula hasn't changed. And so once we made that pivot, it really made it so that we could stand out in the marketplace as a small shop. And so like that was, I think, the biggest kind of turning point. And then the other big milestone was honestly like the last 3 months of seeing this whole new world evolve And I don't remember if I think we talked about this prior, but I had our team produced 2 ads for 2 different clients in the same week. And I was doing my review before they went out to the clients, and they were phenomenal. And I was just kind of like shell shocked because we had kind of done both of these as like a freebie add-on to their program because they needed it. And so I told my team like, hey, this is kind of a freebie. So like don't like prioritize it, make sure it gets done on time, but like don't kill yourself over it. Like just get it done, make it look nice and get it out there. And both of them looked like they had poured hundreds of hours into design and creating these like super motion graphic animated ads. And I like almost lost my mind. I was like, I specifically told you like don't focus. Like we have so many other client projects that are paid. Like we can't be wasting all our time on this stuff. And not that it's a waste of time to work on clients' projects, but it's just like it's a free project. Like we're just giving it to them as like a bonus. So I brought them into a meeting and I said, guys, this is beautiful. It looks amazing, but like I told you can't spend this much time on this project because we're giving it away. And they said, oh, we didn't spend much time. And I was like, this has to be at least like between these two like 100 hours of work. Like they look too good. You can't pull. I've been in motion graphics for like 20 years. Like I know how much time this takes. And I said, so they were like, no, it didn't take anything like that. I was like, well, how long did it take? And he's like, well, this one took like 15 minutes, and then this one took like 20 minutes. And I was like, how is that even possible? Because these are custom pieces. This isn't template. This isn't like going onto story blocks and pulling down or like going into CapCut and grabbing some TikTok template. These are fully custom ads. And he's like, we started using this new software called Leonardo. And I I looked at it and I was just like, holy cow, deliverables are going through the floor. Like this is going to change everything because now a project that I remember when I was working at St. John's, we had a television commercial and there's a 5-second clip where we needed a plane, Air Italia plane, to go by a window at an airport. And we shot the commercial at an airport, but there wasn't a plane there that day. So we needed to CGI in a plane. And that took like 7 weeks and probably close to $10,000 for that one little 5-second shot of a plane going by the window. And now you probably could do the entire scene and not even film it with AI in seconds. And you could get multiple versions of it with multiple different actors for pennies. And so it's like seeing that and then the Arrow commercial at the Super Bowl is like this is the rumblings before the volcano explodes. So it's like there is never a better time to start moving when you start seeing the clouds build, and the clouds are definitely building. So that I think I think I will look back on this in a couple years and say I was 100% right on this, and I'm glad I noticed it when I did because I think it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise.
Two things. First, I have a buddy who's at private wealth management. It's his full-time thing, and his wife owns retail locations.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to be anonymous. So in his time where he spends watching the kids play sports, soccer practice, whatever, he brings his laptop and he has built a custom, not even a website, like it's a custom web app for his wife's retail location where you can essentially put in a picture of a woman that wants to shop and it'll give you recommendations, color palettes, like here's what we have in inventory that's like that. I mean, the guy did it for less than $1,000 and on like nights and weekends while he's doing family stuff. And that's not all he did. He like fully automated their back end. And I was telling him some of the things in marketing automation I've been working on. He like built this system that I spent thousands of dollars and lots of labor on, like working with AI. He did that same thing in a couple weeks. So if someone that's in not marketing can create impressive stuff like what we're both talking about, um, I don't see the defense. I don't see the steelman defense for the traditional agency model holding up to the evidence that you and I have both shared on the podcast. Number two, um,
There you go.
I joined the VAM fam, which is the value acceleration method. I went to Alex Hormozy's conference about a month ago. I got back, and in that, it was the craziest week of my business that I had ever had in any business, and I've been a business owner since 2019. That single week, even crazier than when I left my PE firm and started this. So got 20 hours of the conference, 10 hours a day, 2 days, met tons of people, 100 pages of notes, like, Hormozy delivers, right? If you think the
Yeah.
free content or the low cost content is good, high ticket stuff, high satisfaction. And I get back and I get a notice that one of the client, like my whale client, said, "Hey, we're going a different direction. I know, everything's been great, but we're going a different direction." So had like the highest high and probably the biggest drop in revenue. And I think in the last 30 days, I've like doubled my views on social media platforms with the help of AI. And I just hired somebody when I landed, so I lost the biggest client. So it's another mirror in your story.
Yeah.
I'm still working through. I mean, it's stuff like it's not a complaint. It's all positive and growth. But I think these kinds of conversations, hearing someone else who's been through a similar, event where something really positive happens, your first child, and then something negative happens on the other side, and you come out better for it because of, well, thanks, Alex Ramosi, probably for both of us in this instance.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I give him all the credit in the world, but I also think like there is no growth without pain. Like I think everybody's chasing this mythical dragon of like this like, hockey stick growth and it's just like easy street. And it's like, dude, even if everything is going perfectly on your lead generation and sales side, it's like then your fulfillment's going to start to suffer. And if everything's going great on your fulfillment side, then your leads and sales are going to suffer. And it's like there's never this happy balance where everything is just going right all the time. Like you're always going to, even if your business is doing perfectly, then something in your personal life will happen.
yeah, it's like a
So
theory of
it's like,
constraints, and it doesn't
yeah,
have to be as scale of justice as just two sides. It could be your personal life starts to suck, or it could be, oh, you probably should get someone to audit your books because you've been neglecting your accounting or your bank recs. Um, yeah, I totally agree. There's no true win. Like everything's a trade-off.
yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things that if you can take in the pain and just grow from it and say, yeah, you know what? That was a stupid offer. I am not going to run that again because I lost my hat on it. Or like, we ran an offer last year that was a really good offer. We had a great case study for it. Everything in my mind said this is absolute gold. We generated a bunch of calls off of it, closed one sale off of like 50 sales calls. Like pretty obvious that it's not the winner we thought it was. And what it really came down to is it was a price versus audience mismatch. We had to charge too high for this thing for the people we were trying to sell it to, and it just didn't make sense to them. And so like walking away from that, I could be like, man, we wasted so much money on ads and like all that time wasted on sales calls. But it's like, no, because now I know that that's not what's going to work. And like now I can take that. I was in a consultation yesterday and she had a very similar offer to the one I had run. And she told me her price. And I was like, that's not going to sell. She's like, how do you know that? I was like, because I did 50 sales calls of practically the same offer, and I actually did more than you, and my price was lower, and it couldn't sell. And I'm pretty decent at sales. So if I was doing more for less and I wasn't able to sell it, your thing is certainly not going to work. And so like after that, she's like, yeah, no, that makes a bunch of sense. Because I ran her through all the logic, all the Monday morning quarterbacking of like, this is, I didn't realize that the people we were going after were going to be so cash strapped that they weren't going to be able to afford this. And the people that are able to afford it weren't going to stick around because the expense was so high. They were always looking at like, well, where's the instant recoup on it? And it's like, it was a longer strategy. It was something that they would probably have to run for 5 or 6 months to recoup their cost, not 1 or 2 months. So, you can take that lesson and you can just say, oh, it's a personal failure. I did a terrible thing and not learn anything from it. Or you can just say, well, we tried it. It didn't work. Now we have a lesson that we can go back to the drawing board and come up with something new.
I think the most valuable part of the acquisition.com workshop was getting feedback from, Alex and Layla, great. Love the brand, love what they have to say. But their team taking the time to really engage and, ask questions, learn about the business. And I had an idea for an offer, and one of the guys um, in charge of growth was like just nodding his head. He goes, "This is the easiest yes." He's like, "Okay, did you launch it yet?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, do 10 times more of that." And sometimes like the hard negative and the hard positive from someone who's done something, has gotten to where you want to be and done something similar, is can shave off. It's a shortcut through the pain, right? Because you're getting secondhand pain. Like what you
Yeah.
did for that consultation, that client, they could have gotten the same result with the same amount of pain and effort and wasted 50 sales calls to get maybe a conversion, if that, or they could just listen to you and get the shortcut to not have to experience it.
Well, and like, so I have a coaching program, and it's a very expensive coaching program. At least I think it's very expensive. I mean, other people might think it's cheap or too even more expensive than I think it is. But the whole reason I price it that way is because yes, I'm saving you decades of pain because I've done all this stuff for years and I went through all the slings and arrows and I took all the battle scars. And so when you bring me something, I'm going to be able to tell you definitively, yes, that's going to work, or no, that's not going to work, or, here's how we can test it without, absolutely destroying your bank account in the process. So it's like, I think the value of having someone who has been through it before is immense. The other thing, and I don't know if you've found this, but the best coaches I've ever have been super vague and short spoken. Like they don't tell you, like it's like I have this one guy that I've talked to, and he's probably a 8 figure. I don't even he owns I don't know what you call someone that owns like 30 businesses, but he's making tons of money. He's been doing this forever. And like I called him one day and I was telling him about some of the challenges I was facing with fulfillment. And he just like was like, well, if you did, X, Y, and Z, would that fix the problem? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, then just do that. And it was so it is one of those kind of third party validation things where because you get hung up on these ideas and you're like, I don't know, that's a big pivot. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if I should spend the time doing it. And then just having someone who's sitting at the top of the heap go like, no, just do that. Like it's a great source of motivation. And like I took his advice and it radically changed our fulfillment structure and like
Yeah.
made my life infinitely more easy than what it was prior. And it's been the same for a lot of times I've met with people, met with coaches. And like I had one coach who wouldn't give me answers. He would just let me vent and he'd be like, I think I know you. I think you know what you need to do. And it's like, yeah, because after I like got it all out of my system, it's like, yeah, no, the path forward is obvious, but sometimes it's just talking that stuff out. And that's been another thing I've found AI is getting better at is like, have you played with like Gemini's voice chat feature, ChatGPT's voice chat feature?
Yeah, somewhat. But to your point, I have taken the transcripts and the notes of coaching calls for the last months, and I said, "Hey, can you act as this my coach?" And then if that person's busy, I can't get the human. I just use the AI model, and it's like 80% of the way.
Yeah, and I mean I think the one part that a lot of people go for coaching, at least in my experience, has been the kind of empathetic ear part. But at the same
Oh,
time, it's
totally.
like a lot of times it's just getting the knowledge. It's just like, what do I need to do next? What's the next thing on the list? Here's what my results from the ad campaign. What do you suggest I do? And so I think there's that piece of it can totally be replaced by AI. I think the like venting and questioning and self-doubt and all that, that's where coaches still kind of shine
The
through
the
because
20% that can't be replaced by AI is worth the price tag.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, even as I've thought about building a version of myself to integrate in my coaching program, um, I've just thought, you know what? It's the juice isn't worth the squeeze yet because building all that knowledge into one area and then programming it and tuning it with the structure of my program, it's not adding a ton of value. But I know within a few years, when it's able to do even more than just query databases, when it's able to even better connect with people that are chatting with it, I think that will be the time to kind of launch an AI coaching tool independent of having a human so that people that can't afford a high ticket coaching opportunity could still. And I mean, people have already done that with Alex Hormozy's stuff. Like there's a bunch of bots out there who you can get coached by Alex Hormozy and it'll just
Oh,
talk to you like Alex Hormozy would talk because it takes all his knowledge and samples his tone and voice and style. And, you know, it's the next best thing. It's not quite steak, but it's like steak.
yeah, I'm actually looking at one of my pinned GPTs, the Grand Slam offers GPT. I've used that before too. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, cool. Um, Drew, we're approaching time here. While we are still in need of connecting with humans, can you answer how can people connect with you?
So that's pretty easy. So in terms of social media, I am most active on X. Um, I really think found kind of a home there amongst the other marketers there. So if you want to chat or shoot me a message, that's a good place to do it. You can also visit our website, grohaus.org, GROHAUS.org. Um, Otherwise, I'm a little bit of a social recluse. Besides X, I'm not on the other channels very much. I used to be very big into TikTok. We didn't really get to talk about that whole scenario. But since the ban, I really pulled away from that platform since last year or so. But yeah, I would say, feel free to reach out to me anytime. If you want to email me, drew@grohaus.org, or, connect with me on X.
Awesome. Everyone listening, thanks so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. I don't run ads in the show, but if you want to share it with a friend, that would mean the world to me. Until next time, Thunderstock out.